I get asked a lot how covering the Zodiac affects me personally. Notices and emails saying, I've got a tip where I've solved this thing, I can't give you my real name, meet me at a certain place at a certain time and I'll reveal everything. It's stressful. Hi, I'm Kevin Fagan and I'm a longtime reporter at the San Francisco Chronicle. I've been covering the Zodiac Killer case for about 30 years. I got onto it when I was covering the Unabomber case, and I got a letter from someone saying they thought the Unabomber was the Zodiac. Well, I wrote a story. I can certainly say, no, the Zodiac was not the Unabomber. But once that story ran, my editors said, well, you're now the Zodiac reporter. Today, I'll be going through some tips and theories that came in on Reddit, and I'll give you my reaction. I heard a theory that the Zodiac doesn't actually exist and was actually someone who worked at the newspaper the letters were sent to, who also had access to case files. So the Zodiac murders are actually independent incidents that were all brought together by the Zodiac letters, and the letters were written by a guy at the newspaper. What's your opinion on this? My opinion is that that's ridiculous. It's in the category of other theories where the Zodiac is crazy uncle down the street, the nutball who lives upstairs, no, it's a bunch of cops, no, it's Charlie Manson, it's the Unabomber again. Sure, you can guess all kinds of things, but that one, absolutely sure. No one at the paper did this. Do you think that cracking these 40-plus-year-old ciphers will actually help to shed light on who the Zodiac Killer was, or do they just serve as interesting pieces of history? I don't know. I know one of the biggest ones has been solved, and it's just crazy ramblings by a killer. You know, I like killing, the most dangerous game is man, you know, yammering on like that. I've had, dozens, if not hundreds, of solutions sent to me where people were absolutely sure they've solved it. And the ciphers all lead to this name or that name or another name. Most importantly, the FBI, which is the final word on this in America, only verified a couple of these things. Now here's a question that comes up a lot. Where does the majority of this sub lean towards in regard to if you definitely think this case is too old to solve at this point, and if the killer will become lost to history if not already? Now I wouldn't just confine it to this sub. I think that's a question that comes up everywhere for people who pay attention to the Zodiac case. It's getting old. Whoever did the killings could still be alive, clearly. And until we reach that point where the killer would be 100 years old, 110 certainly, then you're not going to get a confession unless you find some secret diary somewhere, which people have said they have found, and the authorities have never confirmed any of those, because this comes up quite a bit that someone has done writings saying I am the Zodiac, and then the police, the investigators look in it and they can't nail it in. So no case is ever really done until it's done. Look at Jack the Ripper. That one's more than a century old and people are still scraping over it. Jack the Ripper is Britain's version of our Zodiac Killer here. They're really the most enduring unsolved serial killings for these countries. The bottom line is, yeah, he could be alive, but stopping cold turkey doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the motivation in the brain of a serial killer. Now here's one that I frankly found kind of irritating, and I try not to provoke the Zodiac sleuth community because I think a lot of them are very sincere. Most of them are very sincere about what they're trying to solve and trying to get across. So have you ever seen Ted Cruz and the Zodiac Killer at the same place at the same time? So in other words, is Ted Cruz, the senator, the Zodiac Killer? No. This treats a really serious string of murders as infotainment. You don't make jokes about this stuff. You don't treat it as something to tee-hee about on the internet. No, there are real people who are dead. And everyone who dies in a murder leaves behind a string of relatives and friends who are filled with anguish. It's trauma that goes through generations. Not something to joke about. Doing the Zodiac beat, as it were, is strange. I get hundreds of tips every year from people in the email, phone calls, snail mail, hand-created books. It's astounding to me how much interest there still is in this. That having been said, the newspapers do have an unbidden role in all this stuff. We got letters from the Zodiac. We got a manifesto written by the Unabomber. The big dilemma is, do you run this? Do you want to be the mouthpiece for a killer? It's a real tough one, because you're not running the Zodiac letters and the Unabomber letter to, entertain people. It has to be done for the public good. And we don't work in concert with the authorities, with the FBI or the police. Our job is to be a watchdog on those agencies. But when a killer is involved, the public good really takes precedence. And so we do consult with the cops on whether we collectively think it's a good idea to run a letter that is from a killer. That's a very tough decision. It has to help lead to some kind of solution in the crime, or at least try to lead to it. With the Unabomber, the New York Times, Washington Post, and we ran the manifesto that he wrote, which was his diatribe against modern technology. Well, that led to his being busted, because his brother and brother's wife read it and said, that's Ted, our brother Ted Kaczynski. Led to him being arrested. That wouldn't have happened if that manifesto had not gone out widely. Now, as far as the Zodiac letters, thousands of people think that reading those letters, because they were made public, has led to their solutions. Maybe one of them got it right. I don't know. When the FBI and the police departments say, yes, they got it right, we've solved it, then we know.